we set a brand new high today in the coffee market.
Hi, once again, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, and I'm joined by the president of Comstock Investments, Mr. Matthew Kruse, who is speaking to us directly from Brazil as he is on a trip down there to see how things are going and keep us informed of what's going on. Of course, he has family there too. So we appreciate all the advice and input here, Matthew. Good to visit with you again. Today is a big day because we had the USDA WASDE report that came out. And I wanted to take a look at the numbers with your narration here, if you don't mind. And we'll kind of go through this because right after the numbers came out, let me bring up the first one here. Came out, we had a bit of a rally in the corn market. Now, that seemed to react stronger than all the others. Explain why. Let's go through the data here.
Well, as we suspected for a long time, I think people have been hearing about how our demand has been pretty strong. Our export numbers are up. I think for like the first 13 market weeks in the marketing season, it's like the second highest for corn exports of all time. And so we know that's been strong, and USDA finally caught up and adjusted some of those numbers. And so it was a pleasant surprise to see that. You can kind of see that last month, ending stocks for corn was at the 1.938 billion bushels. They were looking for a small adjustment, and they ended up, reducing it 200 million bushels. And so that's how we get down to that 1.738. And so that's why we sparked a rally. To be honest, I was hoping for even more. When I saw that number, I was thinking, man, we might be up 20 cents today, but it's not the close yet. But last I looked, we're up 6 cents. But it's good news, so hopefully we'll get more follow through. And but I think, that there's been a lot of farmers holding on to the crop in pretty tight hands. And so, you're going to run into a lot of, I think, sales at this point that the farmers are going to take advantage and on this rally. I hope they do and kind of catch up on sales. So, yeah, in the, there was all ethanol demand. I think it wasn't just exports. Yeah, ethanol was up 50 million bushels, and the exports were up 150. And so that's how you get to that 200. They didn't make any changes to the soybeans, so that was left unchanged. And then there was a small reduction to the wheat. And they reduced, they increased exports on wheat by 25 million bushels, increased imports by 5. And so that's how we get that reduction of 20 million bushels there in the wheat. And so, so overall, very neutral news in the soybeans and very positive news in the corn.
It didn't seem like the soybeans really got much of a kick out of anything. It didn't seem to be too much of a surprise there, right?
No, I think they were looking for something, but didn't happen. And so probably, by the end of the close here, the market's going to go right back to trading the weather in South America.
Let's go to the world ending stocks, and here we go. We had corn at 296.4 million metric tons. Again, a bit of a friendly surprise, right?
Yeah, you can just kind of see how things are lopsided with, last year we had 314 million metric tons in the corn, and right now we're at 296.4. And so it just kind of demonstrates that a lot of buyers have been moving the corn as the price has gotten cheaper. But it's the opposite case for the soybeans, that there's, last year we had 112, and we just continue to produce more than what we need in the case of the soybeans. And so they had that pegged at 131.9 million metric tons. They were pretty spot on in terms of what they're expecting for the wheat stocks, 257.7 to the 257.9. So no real surprises there.
Let's go to the world crop production numbers. Mainly, this is a look at the South American production, which the new crop is now in the ground. Let's take a look at this.
Yeah, for the soybeans in Brazil, the new crop is pretty much in the ground. Most of that corn has yet to be planted because that comes later here. It'll start in January, planting that second crop of corn. It's still kind of early. They just got the soybeans planted, but, this is what they're, so they didn't really make any changes, I guess, from last month. 127 million metric tons for corn, 169 million metric tons for soybeans. And with the way things are looking, I don't have a problem with either of those at this point. And Argentina is a distant third place in terms of production behind the U.S. and Brazil, but still, when market inventories are tight like this, they can still have an impact. And so, more or less didn't make many changes there. And if anything, they might want to start ratcheting some of those production estimates higher as we get into January. We're already seeing private estimates kind of talk about using a higher yield for Brazilian soybeans if things continue the way they are.
Well, let's move on and take a look at the South American soybean production specifically here and the trends that we have been seeing here over the past, 10 years, I guess.
The goal in putting this chart together was just kind of show, obviously in the last, 2-3 years, how production in South America has shot up tremendously. In that 21-22 season, they had some drought that, hurt yields quite a bit. But since then, things have been only moving higher. And, I was writing about it in our report how if you go from just the last 2 years from the 22-23 season, where Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay cumulatively produced about 192 million metric tons. And right now they're already estimating easily making 231 million metric tons and could go higher yet. Now that's 40 million metric tons increase from South America just in the last 2 years, basically in 24 months. I mean, that represents 1/3 of U.S. soybean production. Just to give you an idea, so they've added 1/3 of U.S. soybean production in just 24 months, and so that's basically our concern here is South America, especially Brazil, is going to oversupply the market. We're with the talks of tariffs. We're already losing our trade market with China, our number one customer, and that's could likely continue further. And so that's basically the challenge that we see right now, and why we as I think we get into the end of the year, our concern is that we get into January and the market could there's going to be a lot of pressure to move lower on the soybean market.
Let's go ahead and take a look now at our upcoming weather forecast. And let's start with the outlook that would be valid through, looks like Sunday, the 15th of December. And again, I'll remind everybody on this particular map, which appears to be the European model, the colors are kind of reversed from what we're used to. So here, the red would indicate more rainfall. The blue is more of the dry areas. Explain what this means here for production.
Well, yeah, it's just kind of showing here, just taking a snapshot of 1 week gets us in through next Sunday on the 15th, and just kind of showing that for the vast majority of the growing regions in Brazil, especially in the southern part of Brazil, that they're seeing, adequate rainfall. That bottom part is all in millimeters. So it's about 1 inch is about 25 millimeters. And so, you're talking 2 to 3 inches maybe in most of those growing regions. And that where it gets kind of that darker blotch there in the south there, that's over the state of Paraná. You're talking up to 6 inches in some of those areas. Now, there are some dry pockets that we highlighted here in kind of the center to the northeast part of Mato Grosso, which has a lot of an important production area, obviously, in Mato Grosso. And so I just highlighting that. I don't know that it may not mean anything depending on how long it is. I've talked with some producers and how, that if it goes dry for a week, might actually be a good thing. That last year, right after planting, it seemed to go dry for a little bit, and all that did was allow the soybeans to kind of set their roots deeper into the soil, and that seemed to help out, later in the season. And one of the things they attribute getting some higher production for that. And so, but I don't know how. I think looking out later into December, we seem to see the rainfall coming back, by the last week of December. And so going into this, some of those dry spells, they've had really good rainfall. And so I think it'll get them by for a little while.
Let's take a look then another week out. Let's go all the way to Christmas Day here. This is up to Wednesday, December 25th. Now, this would be showing us apparently the anomalies from the normal here. Now, here we're back to the blue and green colors indicating more moisture, right?
Yep.
The brown would be a drier trend.
Yeah, where it's the white is kind of average rainfall, and then the green is where it's above average, and then the darker brown is kind of below average. And so you kind of see that as we get into the last week of December around Christmas, that rainfall is kind of expected to come back, and whatever dry areas there may be, they'll be short-lived for the most part. And so there might be areas that go a week or 10 days or something like that without rainfall. And assuming this is accurate, it's probably not going to amount to anything. And so I think if we get into the end of December and this forecast kind of holds true, I think the soybean market is running out of time, because I kind of look at where we were at last year, and the market was basically sitting on pretty strong support, through December, late December, and not too dissimilar from what we've been doing now. I mean, we've kind of traded sideways for the most part since Thanksgiving. And it was last year, I think it was December 29th, where the market actually finally broke through some support. It said enough, like, we're, for those that planted early, the crop is looking great, and it's already, 2/3 of the way through its season. And so, and so that's my concern, is that if we get, the closer we get to the end of December, I think the soybean market is just kind of grasping at straws at this point.
I wanted to bring up something that's a little bit out in left field. I haven't really heard much major media coverage of it, but there's a little bit of concern. The president of Brazil, President Lula, actually had brain surgery here in the last couple of days or something. Do you have any information on that or not?
Not much more than what I've seen in the media. I know he's I want to say 78 years old, and so much like our U.S. presidents all seem to be up there in age, and Biden is maybe 82 and Trump is 78, something like that. So I know he's had some health issues. He had taken a serious fall recently and had canceled his they had a recent meeting among the BRIC nations. He had canceled that trip, and so I read that the surgery went okay, and he's expected to make a full recovery. But yeah, he's not too far away from 80.
Let's just throw out this possibility. What if things would go south and he would be at least temporarily incapacitated or anything? What would that mean to the trade between Brazil, the U.S., and China, et cetera?
I don't know that it'll amount to much. Certainly the markets, don't like uncertainty. I think it could maybe have an effect on the exchange rate a little bit more, the money markets. But in terms of the grain flow moving from Brazil to China, I think that road has been well paved already, no matter who's in there running their White House, I guess. But obviously they have a vice president. It'll transfer of power similar to ours. And so they're going to look at the vice president of Brazil and begin to analyze, what's their history for, managing the country's debt and fiscal reform and things like that.
I know your family there is actively involved in coffee production, for one thing, and I think you had a little information on that. Wondered if you could explain this one.
There's a lot going on in the news today, but today, this is being recorded December 10th, is we set a brand new high today in the coffee market on the ice, and highest price of all time for coffee, beating the last record in 1977. So it took 47 years, but today we set a new high. I don't know how long that's going to last, but basically there's been a lot of things happening in the coffee market. There was Vietnam is the second largest coffee producing nation, and they had a terrible drought, wiped out at least 20% of their coffee crop. Brazil I wouldn't say had a bad crop, but they've had several less than ideal crops that through drought or frost, they've lost 5% off the top of their yields, and each year they seem to just disappoint kind of the analyst expectations. Meanwhile, demand has been very strong. They've been exporting a lot, and so what this all means is that ending stocks, have been moving lower, and they're already expecting the 2025 crop for coffee production in Brazil to be down, just based off of the heat and drought that happened. And it's a perennial crop, right? That it's there year round, and so dry weather in August of 2024 can affect the harvest in June, July of 2025. And so there's been agronomists making those statements already that they think that there's been lost production, and so they're kind of tempering the production outlook for coffee. And so so you have a lot of importers scrambling, trying to make ends meet. I think it's going to cause some disruption in the coffee market. I don't know that that's reached the retail level yet, because there's been a lot of roasters and coffee traders that have bought ahead of time, kind of got ahead of this. But unless something changes, eventually it's going to catch up, and you're going to see higher prices for coffee at the grocery store or wherever. But yeah, that's essentially what's been happening there.
Looking at this graphic here, I didn't realize there was that much volatility in ending stocks from one year to another. Is this reflective of global coffee production on this chart?
This is just in Brazil, actually.
Okay.
However, Brazil is the 800-pound gorilla for coffee, kind of like in soybeans. They're the same thing in coffee. So they represent nearly 40% of the country or the world's production. And Vietnam is second place, but they're a distant second. They represent like 17%, something like that. So Brazil and Vietnam together, are almost 55-60% of the world's global coffee production, and so they kind of control. And then there's a smattering of other countries that make up all the rest. And so it's the market is become much more streamlined, and over the years, I think a lot of people would point out there's potentially climate change happening, and that's causing more intense heat waves and drought in Brazil, things like that. But I think demand has been growing steadily each year. Our coffee that we export some coffee from Brazil to the United States directly from our farm here. It's been sitting at the port for darn near 3 weeks, and we just can't get it on the ship. It's all backed up. There's something like 2 million bags sitting at the port of Santos right now. It's just a mess, and we're kind of frantic trying to get it out of there and get it going on the ship, and because I know people are waiting for it back home.
Well, Matthew, thank you for joining us here today and for a look direct from Brazil. I appreciate that. As always, we'll try and check in with you again next week. That's Matthew Kruse, president of Comstock Investments, joining us here today. For producer Brianne Jenkins. Yes, Brianne Jenkins. Congratulations to Brianne. She just got married last weekend. Anyway, we wish her and her hubby all the best. Anyway, for Brianne, I'm Marlon Bowling. We'll catch you next time right here on the Comstock channel.